Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is on the member tools and reports in BNI Connect. What we're going to do is we're going to look a little bit beyond the home screen here in BNI Connect and see what else is in the system that would be useful to everyday members. I myself am a member here in the Rhode Island region. I've been a member since 2002 in the Wakefield chapter, and BNI Connect does offer some really great tools to be able to do things like invite visitors to your chapter and to register visitors for upcoming meetings and to really go a little bit deeper into your membership, look up various statistics and figures and facts, and offer you some things that might even be able to help you to give more referrals at your next meeting. Before we get started, here's a couple of housekeeping things that I like to go over. The first of which is that this is a live webinar. So that means that as we're going through any of the material today, if you have any questions, please do feel free to ask those questions right away. Just type the question into the questions panel. I'll see it pop up on my screen, and I'll be able to answer those questions as we're going through things. We're scheduled for about a half hour worth of material. That being said, I am always happy to stay on these webinars until every single person's question is answered. This webinar is being recorded. You'll be able to find the recording in a couple of places in BNI Connect. Excuse me, the first of which is if you click on this question mark in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect, that will take you over to the support site. On the support site, you'll see our list of webinars for the month. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see chapter training and documentation. In here, we have guides for every single thing that you have access to in BNI Connect. You can get walkthroughs and guides and helps and videos and things like that. You can also see all of the recorded webinars. We have them done month by month by month. So here's the webinars for November, for example. You can review any of the ones that we've done so far. And today's webinar will be uploaded and available probably in about a day or so. You can also find them on our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/BNI Connect Global, you'll be able to find our YouTube channel. And this has a ton of recorded content on it. It has some special messages from Dr. Meisner. It's got some educational moments, some tips and tricks and 3 to 5 minute videos on specific topics in BNI Connect, as well as all of the recorded webinars as well. So please do check out our YouTube channel and subscribe if you'd like to be notified of the videos as they get uploaded. All right, so let's go back to BNI Connect. And again, we're going to talk about the member tools and reports today. So the first thing I wanted to just briefly go over is the reports that are available on the home screen here. And the first of which, of course, is your My BNI Business Report. This right here is a snapshot of your PALMS activity for the past 12 months and for your lifetime in BNI. So it's a nice little reality check where you stand, the referrals that you've given. Of interest here is the revenue received to my business. That's a number that is private only to you, and that number is basically just a total of all of the thank you for closed business slips that you've submitted online. So if you're submitting thank you to closed business to other people, it will record that. We'll keep a running total for you so that you can see how much money you've generated in your own business. Because the thank you for closed business is always anonymous and private, we can only record this number if you are submitting the slips online. But above this report, there is a report called the My Personal Participation Report. The hyperlink is right here next to My BNI Business. If you click this report, basically, this is going to show you where some of those numbers come from on the home screen. This is the weekly PALMS report that your chapter generates. So after each weekly meeting, your vice president goes back, they input any paper slips and verify all of the online activity, and then they submit that report for the week. What this does is it goes to that weekly report, just pulls your information out of it, and for the past year, it gives you a week-by-week entry of all of your activity. This is a great place to go if you think that there might be an error in your numbers. You're looking at your numbers, say, I think I had more referrals than that, or I don't think I was absent that many times, or the thank you for closed business isn't right, whatever you think it might be. This report will help you to find out where that particular error might be. So, for example, I could say, I have 2 absences here listed on my report. Well, I know I was absent a couple of weeks ago, but let me look back, and it says I was absent on April 24th. I don't know if that's right. I'm pretty sure I had a sub that day, and maybe I want to follow up. And if a correction needs to be made, I can talk to my vice president, and they can make that correction. It will also show you a snapshot of your attendance. It will show you how many members you've sponsored in the last 12 months, and also what trainings you have attended. Now, if you haven't gone through them, you may also want to look at the Review My Slips reports. One of the reasons that I like to use these reports is that they give you an added view of your activity. So not only is it showing you the slips that you've submitted if you're using the online slips, but it gives you another benefit as well. So for example, with the one-to-one report, I can choose this report, and let's say I'm going to go back a full year here or so. This report allows me to figure out who I'm having ones-to-one with and to really go back and analyze those one-to-ones. For example, I'm sure this has never happened to you, but you're sitting at your weekly chapter meeting and you look across the room and you say, you know what? Brian Fish and I, we used to be really, really good referral partners. We're passing lots of business back and forth, and it seems like that relationship has gotten a little bit stagnant. We haven't been able to produce much business for each other. Going back to your one-to-one report, one-to-ones are the key to providing referrals for one another. They help to maintain the relationship, to go deeper in the relationship, and besides the weekly meeting, it's what helps you stay top of mind with that other person. And I can look at this report and I can say, you know what? Brian Fish and I haven't met since February 10th. That's a long time to go. That's almost 9 months since we've had our last one-to-one. We should probably get something scheduled and get back on each other's radar. And it's the same with the thank you for closed business and the referral slips. Who are you thanking for the most business? You want to know who your best referral partner is in the chapter? Take a look at your thank you for closed business slips. Again, you can choose any date period you'd like to, but once you get in here, sort this list by thank you to, and have a look at the totals that you're thanking people for. When I did this for myself, I noticed that there's a specific person in my chapter that I've thanked for, about $100,000 worth of business. Now, these are referrals that were passed to me years and years ago that I didn't realize were still producing so much money. This is an insight into my membership. I should probably go and take this person to lunch, or at least make sure that she knows that I'm still thankful for those referrals that are still producing revenue. All right, but now let's go beyond the home page and take a look at some of the other reports and tools that are available in the system. Now, a lot of people come to me and they say, you know what, I don't know where to find stuff in BNI Connect. I don't know where all these things are. Here's the way that I always remember the navigation in BNI Connect. So you'll see these different menu items along the top: network, operations, reports, tools, and admin. Network is where all of the social media things are. If you're networking with other people, that's where you're going to go for your connections, for the groups, the discussion groups, the testimonials. That's all of the quote-unquote social media components. Operations is where you're going to go if you're going to be doing data entry or input or certain tools in the system. If you're creating or generating something in BNI Connect, the operations tab is where you're going to go. Reports, on the other hand, are all read-only. It's when we want to get some data out of the system, statistics and rosters and things like that. We're going to go to reports to get the data output. First thing we want to go to is I want to bring you into the operations menu. There's just a couple of things there that I think are very, very helpful to members in BNI Connect. So I'm going to go to operations. You'll see the different operations on the left-hand side. Now, one thing that I will explain is that you may or may not see all of these things on the left-hand side. The way that BNI Connect works is that depending on what your position is, whether you're a vice president or a president or a visitor host or a secretary treasurer, when you have those roles in the system, you may see additional options. For example, unless you're a secretary or treasurer or a vice president, you may not see this meeting management because you wouldn't be entering weekly POMS reports or you wouldn't be entering the speaker rotation. But if you are a vice president or a secretary treasurer, then this option will be here. But there's a couple of things that just about everybody should have in BNI Connect. The first one I want to show you is this create email function. Now, this is great because there's three things in here. The first two, email my chapter and email visitor invitation, I personally use all the time. The email my chapter, what this does is it gives you a distribution list of all of your current chapter members. So before BNI Connect, if I wanted to send an email out to my entire chapter, I would probably go back into my sent email or go back into the emails that I've received from my chapter and just hit reply all to the latest email and just kind of hope that everybody was on the list. This will give you the most current list, so all the people that might have just joined in the past week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they'll be included in here, as well as if somebody has left the chapter, if they've dropped out of the chapter, they will no longer be on this list. So you can highlight this, copy it, and then use your own email program. Now, whether that is a Microsoft Outlook or using Gmail or whatever mail program you're using, I recommend pasting everybody into the BCC line. Little known fact, you do not have to have anybody in the 2 line. You can just have people in the BCC line. Type out your email and hit send. That's all there is to it, but you'll know that it's going to the right people. The second thing in this list is the visitor invitation. And this is a way for you to be able to send an invitation to a potential visitor to come and see your chapter. A lot of times we struggle in saying the right things to a potential visitor. You know, we don't want to say too much about BNI, but we want to give them the right amount of information, and then we're typing the email, oh, well, what is the address of our chapter meeting? We have to go look that up and type out what time we meet and all that stuff. This makes it a lot easier because it'll pull all that information automatically out of BNI Connect, like your chapter name, your chapter location, the address details, the time, the day that you meet. Explain just a little bit about BNI and then ask them to come and visit the chapter. And you can even customize it with your own first paragraph, your own words. So if I click on email visitor invitation, I just need to fill out a couple of lines and it will then insert it into the custom template that's in the system. So let's say that I was out at a networking event and I met somebody, said, hey, Steve, would you like to come to my BNI chapter meeting? I'd love to introduce you to my referral partners. They say yes, so I can send them an official invitation. So let's say this is Steve Elliott from Elliott Accounting and the email address. So I'm going to send this to me, and then you can put your own personal message. So the personal message can be whatever you'd like it to be, and it's going to be the first paragraph of this email. So I could say it was great meeting you at the networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral team. And click send. And again, it's going to take this information, it's going to send an email to the email address that you listed there, and that does go right away. I've already received it. Here's the one I just created. It comes with a BNI graphic. Dear Steve, it was great meeting you at the networking event, so that's the message that I put in. It then lets them know that he's invited to the BNI Wakefield chapter, which is the name of my chapter, where we meet, what day we meet, what time we meet. It briefly explains what BNI is about, lets him know that we're looking for somebody in his profession, and to please RSVP to me. If he hits reply to that, this reply will go to my email address. Harley says, why am I muted? Right now I do have all of the connections muted. There tends to be a lot of background noise and interference and differing levels of audio quality. I should be able to unmute you if there's something that you'd like to ask. Otherwise, you can just type the question in, and I'd be happy to answer that question. Does that help, Harley? All right, so moving on, if you are inviting visitors, now let's say that a visitor comes back to you and says, oh yeah, you know what, BNI sounds great. I do want to come and visit your chapter meeting. You can go ahead and register them as a prospective visitor as well. And you can do that by, in the operations again, the top menu item here is Manage Visitors. And one option that everybody should have is says Register a Prospective Visitor before a meeting. So this is for an upcoming meeting. So what I can do is click on this, and it's a very simple form that you fill out with all of the visitors' contact information. Now what's great about this is once you register them for an upcoming meeting, it sends them an email that says you are now confirmed to visit this chapter. It also sends them a reminder to visit 2 days before the meeting. It also sends a message to your leadership team as well as your director, consultant, and the visitor host saying a visitor is coming to this week's meeting. Here's their information, and you can even do a pre-meeting follow-up with that visitor. All right, let's see. We have a comment here from Paul. Paul says, is it possible to verify the potential visitor's email address? They had an instance where it was entered incorrectly, so although everyone was copied correctly, no email went to the visitor. So do you mean, through a bounce back or something like that? I'm not sure how they would technically accomplish that in the system to pre-verify it, but Paul, I'll tell you what, the place to send that, if you want to shoot an email with that to support@bniconnect.com, or even better, if you go to the question mark here in BNI Connect, that will take you over to the support site, and if you scroll down to the public forums, there's a suggestions and enhancement requests. And that's the place to input any ideas that you might have or changes to the system, enhancements. This is reviewed every 2 weeks by the entire project team, the project manager, the business analyst, the support team, the web support team, the testers. And we go through all of the new entries. They make notes of them. They keep track of the ones that they need to in the programming system. And this gives it the most visibility. You can also go through and read all of the other suggestions that are up here and even vote for the ones that you like. Does that help, Paul? All right, so that's a couple of the operations I wanted to show you. Now, let's take a look at the reports that are in the system. The reports, there are a ton of reports. So if I go to Reports, Chapter, you can see that there is a whole list of reports here. Now, we only have about 9 minutes left, so I'm not going to go through all of the reports. I really just wanted to show you a couple of my favorites. I do invite you to please come back to the reports and just kind of poke through them, and there's some great information in there. But the important ones I want to show you today The first one is this chapter roster report. Now, this seems like it's going to be a fairly straightforward and simple one, but it has some good information in it. The first of which is that when you run this report, it will show you right away all of the officers and leadership team for your chapter. Now, this is great because you may not know who's in various positions, especially when it comes to things like the membership committee. If you're having a membership committee issue, who should you go and talk to? This will list the people that you might want to give a call or you might want to go talk to. Also, maybe you have an idea for a great educational moment. You can talk to your educational coordinator. If you're on the leadership team, this is the way to see whether people are coded properly in the system. And if you have another problem, you can also get in touch with your director consultant because they're going to be listed on this report for you as well. It'll then also list all of the members and their classifications, company names, and a brief view of their POMS history for the last 90 days. The next report that I want to show you is a couple of reports down. It's called the Meeting Notes Report. Now, this is, on the surface, a very simplistic report, but it has some pretty big implications to it. If I click on the Meeting Notes Report, you'll see all it really is kind of an even shorter version of the roster. It just has everybody's name, and it has their company name. Then it has a blank area to keep notes. Now, why this is important is because this can really help to increase the number of referrals that are being passed at your chapter. I don't know if your chapter does this. In my chapter, we actually print out a blank copy of this. So we click print, and we print out 30 copies of this and pass this out at our chapter meeting so that everybody can take notes while people are giving their weekly presentations. So when Christy goes around, I can take notes and what I remember about her presentation and the person that she might be asking to meet this week. I can then keep that with me during the week so that as I'm going around in my business, I'm thinking about this all week long, especially in a chapter of, we have 47 members in our chapter right now. Trying to remember all 47 people's sales manager minutes, their weekly presentations, is kind of tough to do. So this helps us to remember for the week. Now, this report may not give you enough space to write down. So in almost all of the reports in the system, you have a couple of options here at the top. You can, of course, print it like I was just doing, or you can also export this report. And exporting this report will allow you to really have full control over all of the aesthetics of the report. So I clicked export, I opened it up, and now I have it open in Excel. So now I can pretty much do whatever I want to do with this report. I can make the various fields wider or smaller. Let's say I want to make this notes field nice and big. Maybe I want it to be a little bit deeper as well. And now I have plenty more space for taking notes, or I can even just use this as an Excel file and take notes electronically during the meeting. By the way, here's a little Excel trick for you. One of my absolute favorite buttons in all of Excel is right on the Home tab. It says Format as Table. I love to click this button, choose a color scheme. Now what this does is it allows me to sort or even filter the list. So if I want this sorted by last name instead of first name, I could sort it by first name, or I can sort it by first name instead of last name. So this really does give you full control over how you want to print it out. If you want to make sure that you only have it on one page or something like that, or duplex it, this will help you to do that. All right, the summary POMS report is the bread and butter of all of the reports in BNI Connect. Some things about the POMS report: you can run the POMS report for any date range you want to. By default, it's going to show you the last 6 months worth of data, but you can, let's say I want to go back to, 1995 for this chapter, I can. I don't even think the chapter was open in 1995. Now, the other option you have is whether or not you want to include the listing of dropped members. Now the totals will always be for the whole chapter, but you can choose whether or not to filter out. Now if I include dropped members on this is going to be a really, really long report because it has every member that was ever a member of this chapter. And I can look at the totals at the bottom. And of course, if I want to, I can uncheck include dropped members, and I will only see the current members of the chapter. But again, these totals at the bottom will be the full totals for the entire chapter. Now, skipping down a couple of reports here, the classifications not in chapter report. Now, this one's a pretty important report because it helps you to figure out who you might want to invite to your chapter. This one's a great one for growth coordinators especially, but I'm sure you've never heard in your chapter, maybe you're doing a visitor's day, I've invited every single person I could possibly ever think of. There's nobody left for me to invite. I like this report because it helps to jog people's memory a little bit. So if I click go on this report, what I'm seeing here is it's going to list all of the classifications that our chapter doesn't have. But even better than that, and this list is about 430 or 450 classifications long, but what's even better than that is it then goes through my region. So here in Rhode Island, we have 6 other chapters right now that have a plumber even though we don't have a plumber. So 6 other chapters have a plumber and we don't have a plumber. Now that's pretty important. It tells me a couple of things as a member. The first of which is I probably want to invite a plumber. Now why do I want to invite a plumber? Well, first of all, I'm not competing against all of these chapters for a plumber. They already have one. So I might even want to reach out to some of the other chapters in the region saying, hey, if a plumber comes to visit, we could use one. Would you send one over our way? It also tells me that plumbers are pretty successful in BNI because they're in so many other chapters in the nearby area. This also helps because if people are saying, I've just run out of ideas for people to invite, if we scroll a little further down the list, you can start looking at basically all of the different classifications. Have you ever thought about inviting a language pathologist? Or somebody that does mediator services? Or somebody that owns an art gallery? Or somebody that's a handwriting analyst? These are all different ideas that may just spark your memory and get you thinking about somebody else to invite to the chapter. Now, if you remember the personal participation report from the front page, the personal POMS report is the same thing. However, you can run it for a longer or shorter period of time, and you can also run this report for any member of your chapter. There's also the member details reports. One of the things that we're taught in the member success program is that we should be doing a gains exchange with other people before we do a one-to-one with them. This is one way that you can do that gains exchange. For example, let's say that I'm going to be doing a one-to-one with somebody in my chapter. I could click on the member details and view their gains profile. I could pick the person I'm having a one-to-one with, click go, and I can just review this part of their profile. I could also click over, view their bio, their tops profile, or even read their commercials. Now, if I need to exchange this with somebody, I could always print this out or export it or even just copy and paste it and email it over to the other person before we have our meeting. And the final report I want to show you is also the visitor registration report. So if you're curious as to who's coming as a visitor for your upcoming meeting, make sure you check out the visitor registration report. And this will show you all of the people that have been registered for a meeting at your chapter. It's a great way to pre-follow up with somebody before the chapter meeting as well. All right, we are at the bottom of the hour. I do want to make sure that I'm respectful of people's time. For anybody that might need to leave right away, just a reminder, this is being recorded. It will be made available, hopefully within the next day or two, for you to rewatch or share with other members of your chapter. What I'd like to do is to open this up to any questions. What questions do you have about BNI Connect? They can be about anything that we've seen today in the member tools and reports, or feel free to ask any question that you'd like about BNI Connect. I'd be happy to answer those questions. While you're thinking of any questions, just a reminder, the place to find this afterwards is going to be on Facebook.com, on YouTube.com/BNI Connect Global. It'll also be on the support site. And of course, I would love it if you went to Facebook.com and gave us a like. We do webinar announcements and reminders and tips and tricks and all sorts of stuff up here on our Facebook channel as well. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. Does anybody have any questions at all? All right, Andrew says, no questions, thank you. Well, thank you for being here, Andrew. I recognize your name from a couple of webinars, so thank you so much for attending these webinars. By the way, a good referral for me is to please let your other chapter members know about these webinars. Our very next webinar coming up is going to be this coming Monday, so a couple of days from today. We're going to be going through the chapter website and different things that you can do with your chapter website and how to maintain your chapter website. Every single chapter in BNI Connect has their own personalized chapter website that you can manage. And then on Tuesday, our final webinar of the month will be the visitor process, the entire visitor process, starting with a couple of things I showed you today, which is a visitor invitation and the registration, all the way through the follow-up process for visitors as well, and how BNI Connect can help you with that. So if you haven't registered yet, please do, and I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Have a wonderful weekend, and if I don't see you in next week's webinars, have a great Thanksgiving if you're here in the United States. Happy connecting, everyone.